is Volusia Today, a public information radio program brought to you by the County of Volusia. Here is your host, Kevin Captain.
Good morning and welcome to Volusia Today. I'm Kevin Captain with the county's Community Information Division. Thank you so much for tuning in this morning. Volusia Today is made possible by our sponsors, the Daytona Beach International Airport, the Ocean Center, Volusia Recycles, and Votran Public Transportation. Today I'm joined by co-host David Hunt with Community Information. Good morning, Dave.
Good morning, Kevin. How's it going?
It's going good. We got a cool show today.
Very cool show. We're going to talk about something that's near and dear to a lot of Volusia County residents.
They're absolutely trees.
Trees.
It's trees. We've got today in the studio County Forester Keith Abrahamson and Environmental Specialist Todd Hanna. Thank you both, gentlemen, for joining us today. It's the first time we've had you both on the show. So it's great to get a little glimpse of maybe starting out with the question, what do you guys do for the county? What's your job? Keith?
Well, our primary job is to enforce the environmental provisions of the Land Development Code. Our tree protection ordinance or wetland protection ordinance, class 2, and threatened and endangered species such as gopher tortoises, scrub jays, eagles, even some manatee permitting, things like that.
So you gave us the 30,000 foot, but what does your day-to-day look like?
Day-to-day, anytime anybody builds anything in Volusia County, you got to have a building permit. And if you're coming in for a single-family residence, you're going to build a single-family residence, most likely you're going to need a clearing permit to build said residence. And that's where we come in. We get inspections scheduled. One of our environmental specialists comes out to the property. We're looking for wetlands on the property. We're looking for protected trees. People have to comply with the tree protection ordinance, which means they have to identify, locate, and save trees on their particular property or project. And hopefully, we get to save quite a few trees. And they also have to provide minimum standards of one tree per 2,500 square foot of lot space by the time the construction is done. So we're doing all kinds of inspections on these properties to ensure compliance with the codes.
So you said new construction. How about permits for existing residential properties? Let's say I got a tree and I just want to go down in my backyard and cut it down, or I'm putting in a fence and a tree's in the way. I don't want to go cut it down. Would you need a permit for something like that?
So in the unincorporated area of Volusia County, if you have a house, a single-family residence, and you own the house and you live there, you're exempt from the tree code. Now that doesn't cover rental properties or commercial properties. Those types of properties would require a tree removal permit to remove a tree. And also, you could require a permit to trim a tree depending on how much of the tree you're going to take off. Industry standards basically state that no more than 25% of the canopy should be removed in a calendar year.
Okay.
So anything above that, we consider a removal, and you would have to get a permit. But, the single-family owner that lives there on the property, no, they don't have to get a tree removal permit.
When you're talking about trees, and you mentioned protected trees, what's protected and what's not, and how does the average resident find that out?
Well, most of the time you have a builder that's building the house, right? And they've gone through this many times, and they know the drill. They know they got a supply tree survey of protected trees. And protected trees on a single-family residential lot are trees in the zoning setback areas that are above 6 inches in DBH or larger, and any historic trees that may be on the lot, and that includes even in the buildable area.
Interesting. Now, what about palms? Are palms, are they protected?
Well, the native sable palm is. So if you've got Washingtonias, or you've got Robelinis, or you've got some non-native palm species, we don't protect that particular set
Why
of
the
palms.
sable?
Sable palm's a native. It's actually the Florida state tree. So it is a tree, and it's native. So.
And there is like certain trees you just can't touch. Like if let's say you lived on the water and you had some mangroves that were getting high and it was messing up your view of the water.
Those are a big no-no, I think, right?
Yeah.
Right. Well, yeah, the state regulates mangrove trimming.
Okay.
We would regulate it in a sense that if you're in the wetland or wetland buffer, to do any work in the wetland or wetland buffer in Volusia County, you would need a wetland alteration permit. But the actual trimming of the mangroves is regulated by the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. Now, they have size restrictions. You can't trim the mangroves below 6 feet. They have a website, and it's pretty self-explanatory. But you would have to get a professional mangrove trimmer to do anything between 10 and 16 feet, and anything above that, they may not even issue a permit or allow you to trim it. But you can work with FW or Florida Department of Environmental Protection and the professional mangrove trimmer. You can do things like vista pruning, which vista, it's like a window. So you could do some pruning techniques to still get your window in your view in sections and portions of your buffer.
Interesting.
So there are all types of ways to get it.
We commonly get questions through our office from residents, and they say, hey, my neighbor cut down this beautiful tree, and, I want you to check to see if they had a permit or that sort of thing. Are those the kind of things that you get questions for? And how do you handle maybe a case like that when you get a question from a resident who's complaining about something that got cut down?
We probably get those at least once a day.
Okay, pretty regular.
Or more.
Yeah, or more. Generally, maybe the same tree. Even several different neighbors may call on the same tree. And we just have to explain to them what the ordinance says, as long as the tree was on their property. And we get a lot that the tree was on the border, so then it becomes a civil matter between the two residents.
Yeah, what happens, now that you say that, what happens when you have a big, say, oak, and you've got a limb that's extending beyond maybe the easement of the neighbor and into the neighbor's yard or over it? Is the airspace, is that their tree, or how do?
Well, you can, if it comes over your parcel, you can trim it. But if you do something that's detrimental to the tree, and it kills it on the other side, the other person could go after you civilly. And that's, we try to stay out of those, manners, and recommend people contact, legal representation and, go from there with it.
And you have ways of validating whether something was cut down recently versus years ago?
I've just experienced looking at, you can go out and look at the stumps. Half the time you get out there, the tree trimmers are still there because it takes a long time to clean up, especially a large tree. It may take a week to get that tree cut and cleaned up. Sawdust, things like that.
Yeah, you can see the green wood. Everybody knows the difference between a old dead stump that's there, it's rotting, it's dry brown, and fresh green wood, fresh green cambium layer, that's been exposed. So yeah, we would take pictures of those types of things and document them in case we have to take the case to the Volusia County Code Enforcement Board.
And what happens in a case like that if somebody did cut it down, they didn't have a permit, it was a tree that was protected under the ordinance? Obviously, it's a lot harder to do an after-the-fact permit, but there are consequences as well.
Yeah, there are late fees, and the ordinance is actually pretty stiff on this. If you were to come in and get a permit for a tree and remove it, you would get 15% replacement. So you'd only have to replace 15% of a protected tree you removed with a permit. If you cut it down without a permit, you could potentially have to replace 150% of the cross-sectional square inches. Wow. And that gets expensive very fast. We recently had one that was cut down that was a 57-inch tree, and at 150%, if that's what we levied, it would have been $216,000. Now, of course, we haven't enforced that 150%, but it's certainly going to be more than the bare minimum 15%.
Ouch.
$200,000 for cutting down a tree the wrong way. I hope everybody in Volusia County hears that and checks before trees are chopped down. You said something interesting earlier about new construction and permits needed, and my mind went straight to historic trees. And then I was thinking, well, how old is a historic tree? Is this front end new construction? You're already identifying those historic trees and those trees that shouldn't be touched. Is that kind of how that works?
Yes.
Yeah, they're providing us with a survey, right, in the location of the historic tree. We take these surveys, our employees, and they go out and they verify them, right? So, we get the survey and we go drive to the inspection, Sometimes you'll get a survey that's inaccurate and you have them redo it. But yes, typically the historic tree is marked on the lot. And then we try to help the homeowner or whoever save the tree. If they can shift the house, if they can work with a certified arborist to do a root zone encroachment plan, if we can do whatever we can to help save the tree, that's the best and first option. And most people buy these lots because they want to keep those trees. Those trees help provide shade for the house. I've had people tell me that they've removed oaks, in front of their house because whatever reason they were afraid they were going to blow down or impact the house, and they've said they've told me that their power bill has gone up, between 10 and 20% just from losing the shade.
Just from losing the shade. Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. We're talking with Keith Abrahamson and Todd Hanna with the Environmental Management Division with County Government. We'll take a quick break and come back and continue to learn a little bit more about trees in Volusia County. Stay with us.
I'm Will Roberts, your Volusia County tax collector. This is a friendly reminder that the deadline to pay property taxes is coming up. Please make sure your payment is postmarked by March 31st to avoid late fees. If you are mailing a check for your property taxes, please make sure your check is made payable to Will Roberts, Tax Collector. You also may pay by phone or online. If you are paying with a debit or credit card, there is a service fee. Please know that my office does not receive any portion of the service fee. If you have questions about your tax bill, please call us at 386-736-5938 or visit our website at vctaxcollector.org. That's vctaxcollector.org.
We're back. I'm David Hunt along with Kevin Captain, and you're listening to Volusia Today, a public information program brought to you by the County of Volusia.
Thanks, Dave. So, Keith and Todd, Volusia County's got some amazing historic trees that are hundreds of years old. My favorite is the Fairchild Oak in Ormond Beach, but there's others throughout the county. Tell us a little bit about what you know on these trees, why they're protected, and really which one would be the oldest one in Volusia?
It's really hard to know without taking an incremental bore and boring into the trees and taking a
You don't
core
want to do
sample.
that.
and that's the bark and that is protection. It's kind of like the trees, like our skin. So you could introduce pathogens and insect activity in the tree. So we really don't want to do that. But based on scientific best guess, probably Old Methuselah might be in De Leon Springs State Park. It's probably around 600 years old. Is 600 to 700 years, somewhere around there.
Wow.
The Bartram Oak is somewhere roughly between 400 and 600 years old as well. And in the same way with the Fairchild Oak. The Fairchild Oak is probably in that 500 to 600 range as well.
Out of those, which one's the biggest?
Oh, the Fairchild Oak.
Yeah, the Fairchild. That's the biggest in the county.
It is, as far as we know so far. I mean, there could be one lurking somewhere. I mean, they recently found a couple up there in the loop area that were, very large trees.
Yeah, I heard they found another as they were clearing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't there like a state competition for the biggest tree or something like that? Or is there?
The Florida Forest Service has a champion tree program. So for each species, they have a champion and co-champion for each tree. And I just happened to look up, we used to work for the Forest Service. The state champion live oak is 139 inches in diameter.
What is that like compared to the Fairchild Oak? Is that
the Fairchild Oak is right around 100, I think.
Oh, really?
I've never really measured it. But
Right.
I think
Wow.
So it's substantially bigger.
It's close to 100 inches. Yeah, I think it's like 108 or something like that.
So on March 21st, we've got International Day of Forests. I mean, and is that's a day obviously to just kind of help make and give awareness to some of these historic trees and the importance of trees.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, our forests are, in our ecosystem is tied to our health and well-being, and that's very important. It's important for people to get out in nature. It's important, to ensure that our habitats are healthy for, not just us, but all our native species.
And I think we recently had a tree giveaway that you all played an integral part in recently, and just the outpouring of support and people who wanted those trees. It surprised me. It surprised us. It was incredible. Can you give me a little background on how y'all helped with that tree giveaway, and just tell us a little bit about that event?
Well, yeah, the tree fund the tree giveaway was basically, it came from our tree replacement fund. So, as we discussed, when trees are removed, sometimes people can't plant. We would prefer people to preserve as many trees on site so they don't have to plant. But the next option is planting your replacement trees on site. And after that, if you've planted all the area you can, then you would pay into our tree replacement fund. So we utilize some of the money from the tree replacement fund. We've had several hurricanes and even some tornadoes recently, and we're like, hey, let's do a tree giveaway. Ever since the pandemic happened, there's been kind of a movement to plant like food forests. So I said, hey, I talked with Trey Hanna, which is actually Todd's brother.
Yeah, we heard all about him.
Talked with him, and we thought that was a great idea to do a food forest giveaway, and we put together the plant species that we could actually get. One of the problems that we were finding were actually finding the material, but we put it together a pretty good giveaway of Florida native fruit trees and fruit plants like blueberry and just all kinds of native plants and that are food forest type plants. And the public really jumped on it. I mean,
yeah, they were gone.
They were gone in like 30 minutes. We had done a tree giveaway 4 or 5 years ago, but it was mainly like live oak, shade trees, and we had tons of trees left over. So we were totally taken by surprise by the amount of outpouring and support and that people want them. So I think it's something that we're going to continue to do every year.
And that's great. You mentioned it comes from the tree fund. Mm-hmm. So just going back to when someone maybe say illegally cuts down a tree and they have to pay that fee, is that where that money goes, and what's the appropriations? How does that tree fund work within the county?
So if you remove a tree without a permit, the replacement costs would go into, if you can't plant on the property somewhere, you could pay it into the fund. Right now the fund is like grant based, so people can apply for the funds to plant trees on public property.
Okay.
So schools and people, we get grants in. There was a disc golf place that's on county property in New Smyrna. That was all planted with the tree fund money. We've got projects going that the retention areas, planting some of those retention areas to try to put some canopy back. So we have all kinds of projects like that going on.
I learned so much working here, Ryan, with Trey, just his ability to identify plants, trees, what they all mean, what they all do. I was wondering if there's like resources available just for the average person who walks out in their front yard and doesn't know anything about trees, just sees trees out there. And is there any way for them to also, a second part to that is to be able to tell if they're healthy or not? Is there like identifying factors maybe like that somebody could simply, or is that just more intricate? Is that what you got to be a forester to kind of be able to identify?
No, there are apps. I mean, you can seek. You can just Google plant ID or put it in your app search, and you can find apps that can help anybody start to learn plant ID.
Is there a benefit to that? Do you think people should do that?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think it's important to know what's around you. You could have something that's invasive or something that's harmful. I mean, you could have poison ivy. Well, you should probably know not to touch it, or poison oak, or you should, if you've got something that affects your pets, something that's poisonous to dogs or cats, having that knowledge is always great.
Let's talk about disease trees for a moment, because I'm sure you guys get a lot of calls about, hey, my tree is not healthy. Can you take a look at it? Can you help me out? And you mentioned the Bartram oak recently too. My understanding is that there's some question about its health on that tree being 400-600 years old.
Yeah. So I can't remember the exact date and time, but I got a call, and someone was concerned about the tree. So I went out there and did an inspection of the tree and the Bartram oak, and right along the power lines on both sides of the tree that face the power lines, there was significant dieback in the crown. And we talked with Ray Jarrett. He works with Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, and he's also an ISA certified arborist. And we talked to each other about it, and he said, "Hey, let's monitor this tree. Let's take a look at it." And then recently we met with a bunch of people, certified arborists, Florida Forest Service, FDACS employees. We all got together, looked at the tree, and came up with a plan to try to alleviate
the owners of the property.
And the owners of the property, because the tree actually lies on private ownership. To try to mitigate what happened. And what happened was it was sprayed with a herbicide or a growth inhibitor or a regulator of some sort on the tips of the trees to keep it from interfering with power lines.
And I had in my yard, in the previous house I lived in, we had the most beautiful, I think it was a red bay tree, and it was 4 stalks, just absolutely gorgeous tree. And it seemed like within a week, all the foliage just completely turned, and it got this
laurel wilt.
Yeah, and that red bay ambrosia beetle.
Yep.
The thing you just said right there.
Yeah.
Killed it. I mean, thankfully I was able to get some of the wood, and now we're making some furniture and stuff out of it. But tell us a little bit about that and things like that, because it reminds me of like you hear about the emerald ash borer and all these other bugs that are coming in from maybe not a native area, and they're deforesting some of the trees.
Yeah, and that's basically it. It's from Eastern Asia. It came in. It bores into the red bay. Once they get to a certain size, usually it's between 5 and 6 inch diameter is when they start attacking it, and then they grow a fungus that they eat. And that's what you'll see, like in the wood that you have, there'll be black lines, and that's what that is.
Black or blue.
Yeah. And how does it work? Like where it just turns brown overnight? It seems like.
Yeah, it just kills it pretty quickly.
Yeah. The fungal fungus just goes right all through the plant. It just hits the vascular system and just runs through it and overwhelms it and kills it.
So when you have to go out and you do these site visits and you find these diseased trees, do you give recommendations on products, or are there just sometimes things you just can't do?
Yeah, I mean sometimes there's no saving it, right? There's nothing you can do. The thing I would say that people need to realize about trees is they require maintenance, right? So if you got a tree next to your house, there are some things you need to look out for. If you see fungal fruiting bodies coming up through the grass and or underneath the tree, it's an indicator of some root problems. If you see, like I said, fungal fruiting bodies on the trunk or in the canopy, that's another indicator that, hey, I need to have someone come out and look at this tree. Trees require maintenance. We always recommend that they get the trees on a maintenance schedule, have an ISA arborist come out and take a look at the tree. Trimming the tree and having someone maintain the tree could drastically improve the life of the tree and keep it from failure.
Spanish moss, good or bad?
Good question, Dave. Some trees you see, that's all you see is the moss, and you wonder, is that...
It's not really good or bad. It doesn't really hurt the tree. The only thing I can say is that when it puts a lot of weight on the tree. So if you've got branches that are already maybe failing, and you have all that weight on the tree, we get a tropical storm or hurricane in here, dumps tons of water on that stuff. It soaks up all the water. You could get some branch failure because of the excessive weight. But if you had an arborist look at the tree and trim it out properly, and they can also do some of that removal, and can help the tree.
So it sounds like it's both good and bad.
So the verdict's not out.
Well, let's take our last break with Volusia Today and come back and wrap up today's show about trees. Stay with us.
I'm Will Roberts, your Volusia County tax collector. If you're like me, you don't want to wait in line. Many people are figuring out how to get around the line, but still get their vehicle registration. Here's how you do it. You can renew your tag online and either have your registration mailed to you, or you can walk in and pick it up through our express lane.
I renewed my tag online, and I'm here to pick them.
All you have to do is log on to vctaxcollector.org/renew. That's vctaxcollector.org/renew. The online payment vendor charges a service fee for online renewals. The fees are listed at the bottom of the page. My office does not receive any portion of this fee. The next time you need to renew your tags, consider skipping the trip by renewing online at vctaxcollector.org/renew.
Welcome back. We're talking with Keith Abrahamson and Todd Hanna with Environmental Management. We're talking trees. Keith, just as we wrap up the show, we've got 2 minutes left. What's your message to residents that might make your job easier and help protect the trees that we have here in Volusia County?
I would say that if you have questions, call us. We're available. We're always available to help or answer questions. We have a great website. We have a ton of resources, a ton of knowledge. I've been here 20 years with Volusia County, so there's virtually no road or thing I haven't touched in the county. Todd's been with the Forest Service prior to here and been here a long time. We have a really knowledgeable staff, and don't hesitate. Reach out, call us. We'll answer your questions, and we'll put you in contact with someone who can help you.
And that's, once again, I always say this with Volusia County. It's amazing how many people, experts we have, and how many people love the county, love what they do. How many calls did you all service last year? Like how? What was the you said some 20,000 number when we were talking off air. What was that?
20,000?
20,000.
Oh, we had well over 20,000 phone calls and emails. We did 20,000 inspections and reviews last fiscal year.
Oh my gosh.
And that was a record year, and we're already 4% over last year's record year. We're 62% above our record number of phone calls and emails.
And we just, speaking of the phone number, let me say it. It's for anybody who has a tree question, we're going to add to that 20-some thousand.
Yeah.
It's 386-736-5927, and you can talk with Keith or Todd, anything that you have about your trees. And so have your phone handy.
Yeah, we've got it with us everywhere we go.
Excellent. Well, with that, thank you guys so much for being on the show. Keith, how long you been with the county?
20 years.
20 years.
Year.
So you know every tree in the county probably.
I've named them all.
All right. And Todd?
7 years.
7 years.
And they
Wow.
both got family that work in the county too.
Hey, that's it's terrific, and thank you for what you do for helping to protect trees and all of the environmental considerations here in the county. Keith Abrahamson, Todd Hanna with Environmental Management. Again, that's 736-5927 if you have a tree question. With that, we'll close Volusia Today. Thank you for listening. Take care, stay safe, and help your neighbors.
If you have a comment about Volusia Today, or if there is a topic you would like to hear featured, please contact Volusia County Community Information at 1-866-345-0345.